What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the MuseCast with your host, Ash Von Tonight Redcon, and Dick Burke, the wolf-headed rooster,
The
coming
Wolfhead
to you.
Brewster.
This is
Live
his
from where?
live from
Ah,
different studios across the land of Florida. Dick is in his new studio that's like really coming together, which is fantastic. We're going to talk about that in this episode. We're going to talk about some interesting things happening in the world of music and also some very interesting camera stuff and also our personal lives. So there's plenty to touch on in this episode. But out of the gate, ladies and gentlemen, assuming that both boys and girls are listening and not just a bunch of old guys, I wanted to first approach talking about this crazy concoction of a show that Maynard James Keenan is putting on for his 60th birthday. It's a show with a perfect circle, Pussifer, and Primus, and apparently they're all going to share the stage simultaneously. There's no separate acts, and I don't even understand what they're exactly going to do. They're going to like trade back and forth, they're going to play on each other's shit. It sounds like a one of a kind of experience. Only one of the shows is coming anywhere close to us, which is in Georgia, close to Atlanta, at an amphitheater. I was looking at tickets. The cheapest ones for the orchestra pit or for seats are $180. They go all the way up to 500. But it sounds and seems very, very cool. And the interesting thing about mentioning the show is, and the thing I wanted to talk about it with you,
yeah.
Dick, is the whole marketing thing. When it comes to like in the world of streaming, Maynard, the projects that he's been a part of for releases and stuff, he's continually been a part of coming up with new ways to put shit out that makes it worth taking note of. That's not just throwing it up on streaming, that like makes you want to buy stuff or participate in it. And we'll
Makes
start with just, well, I'm sorry.
makes it fun.
It sure does, man. Like he gets unique artwork involved. They come up with like there's a special vinyl print of this album coming out, and the album being a 3-song vinyl EP called Sessanta. And it's got a new song from Perfect Circle, a new song from Pussifer, and a new song from Primus featuring Maynard on it. Um,
So
that comes out on the 29th of this month.
that's so cool. And I saw just the other day, I was like YouTubing random stuff, and something came on, and I watched the entire thing. It was a live set of Primus,
Mm.
but it also had Justin Chancellor from Tool.
Really?
And,
What? On
well,
bass?
and Danny Carey, two drummers. It was Primus drummer and Danny Carey, and they were on stage and they were playing. And like they played a couple Tool songs. Maynard was not present that I could tell. And Les Claypool was not playing bass. He's just standing there in this crazy suit singing Tool songs in this only Claypool can do it kind of way. And
Really?
I was like, I love this.
Is
Like,
this on YouTube?
it's on YouTube.
I gotta look that up.
I'll send you a link. I'll send you a
Okay.
link. When you start going again, I'll text it to you.
Okay, dude, that sounds very interesting because so I've never gotten to see Primus play, and Primus has been one of those bands that's paired up on legs of tours with Tool over the years, and I believe with Perfect Circle at different times, and I think Nine Inch Nails. Like they've been so close. Like there's so many shows that have happened where I almost got to see Primus with one of my favorite bands. And the thing about Primus is I really like Primus, but I didn't know how much I liked them until I saw a live DVD of them play. Because again, I've never gotten to see them play live in person. And when
Yeah.
I saw the live DVD of them playing, I was pretty fucking blown away. I mean, so much better live than the recordings. I honestly think that the recording, I haven't checked in on their albums in quite a while. I don't even know what they've put out over the last decade, but
They recently just came out with one with
really,
I the new song. I don't want to misquote it, but it's really cool. And Kyron already knows how to play it. Like he's total Primus.
I know what I'm working out to this week. Then I'm going to look up the Primus album for sure because
It's
But
good. And I'm gonna
their
find.
old albums are kind of thin, man. Like I don't know, it's like weird how garage band soundy recordings some of
Yeah,
those are.
they definitely keep they keep a specific, tone, a specific kind of sound to their stuff that's not overly done, but it's not underdone either. It's like it's just raw. It's real, just raw. I like it. That's
Right
the kind of
on.
stuff I like. Yeah, yeah.
It feels super stripped down. I just when they were playing live and all the power was behind it, I had never heard it mixed that way on top of visually seeing them execute it. And I was like, I just didn't realize how much was going on in their music. And to be honest, I don't know how much he was maybe improving or enhancing, being flashier for a live performance, or if it's just that it was mixed so much better in my ears, where it was like it just sounded so much bigger, and I didn't realize how much they had behind it.
I found it. I just found it, and I'm not gonna play it. Don't play it. Don't play it. I'm gonna send it to you. I forgot. Troy Van Leeuwen is also playing. So they play. It's the song they do
I,
is how you
who's
say
Troy
it differently.
Van?
Troy Van Leeuwen is the original rhythm guitar player who was on the first couple Perfect Circle albums. Then he left Perfect Circle and he played
Oh,
Pete.
from Smashing Pumpkins.
No, he's Queens of the Stone Age. So
Oh,
right now, a perfect circle. Troy Van Leeuwen, you need to go down a Troy Van Leeuwen rabbit hole because
okay.
I've gone down. Troy Van Leeuwen was in a band a long time ago called Failure, and Brett,
That sounds
our
super familiar.
producer, engineer, tracking
Brett
bassist,
Hessla.
Brett Hessla told me who Failure was. When he was down here, we were filming part of the show, and I was showing him some music, and Brett said, "Have you need to check out the band Failure? I think you'd." He said, "I think you'd really like them." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, for sure, definitely." And I did, and I kind of was looking up members, and I saw and he wasn't Troy wasn't in the band the whole time, but he was in the band for a time, and I was like, "Oh, I know that dude, Troy Van Leeuwen. He's the guy who was in Perfect Circle. He was the original guitar player with Billy in the first two Perfect Circle albums, 13th Step and the Mer de Nom. And then he left Perfect Circle and he was in Queens of the Stone Age. The first time you see him in Queens of the Stone Age, I think, is in the No One Knows video with Dave Grohl on the drums. And he's the guy in the blue shirt, blue guitar, blue semi-hollow body guitar, and just cranking it and playing rhythm with Queens of the Stone. He's still in Queens of the Stone Age, but he's also done so much stuff that it's just crazy. He wrote an album with the girl Chelsea Wolfe. If you've ever heard of her, like the one of her albums, Troy Van Leeuwen did all the guitars on it, and it's amazing. And he also did a experimental album with Troy Sanders from Mastodon, the bass player singer from Mastodon. They did an album together where Troy sings Troy Sanders sings and plays bass. Troy Van Leeuwen wrote music, played guitar through the whole thing, and that's called Gone is Gone. It's really kind of trippy rock. It's not super out there or anything. It's kind of, but
Mm.
it's just different, and it's really cool. Troy Van Leeuwen is super cool, and he's also on that live Primus thing with Danny Carey, Troy Van Leeuwen, Les Claypool, and Justin Chancellor on bass.
So he's playing Adam Jones's parts in that.
He is. He's the.
Okay.
I think he's the only guitar player playing on that. But
That
I'm
makes
gonna.
sense. I mean, Tool's a one guitar band. I mean, not to
Yeah,
say that you can't cover it with two, but you only need one potentially to cover most of what they have
I'm
going on
I'm
without layers.
I'm gonna send it to you. I'm texting it to
Yeah,
you.
definitely send it to me.
You got
Definitely
it.
send it to me.
So good. But
Well,
so
that's
so
very
this,
very interesting.
but the tour is Pucifer, Perfect Circle, and Primus.
Yeah, and it's one. It's just one tour leg. It looks like it's in between a Tool show that comes afterwards, and it's cool. And I would want to go. I just got back from Texas after 10 days. I mentioned it to you. I was like, "Do you want to go? If you wanted to go, I'd go." But anyway, it's just too damn much to pull off right now. But what I did want to touch on was more about like just the marketing thing. Like it's just such an interesting idea. Like so they came together for this one tour leg. They put together a vinyl EP. You can get the digital download. They've got their other material. But during COVID, even, during that time, Pussifer put out a live performance that had no people in it. So it was like, this is just
Yeah.
I like the ingenuity that they put together for stuff. And I checked it out, and it was actually really cool. It was very cool. They rented out this whole venue that's out in the middle of the desert. It's a really unique place. They took advantage of both the interior and exterior. So by the end of it, they're outside playing as the sun's rising, and that literally was how they did it. They filmed all night.
That's
And
awesome.
so it's just such this is a really interesting thing. And the whole idea was that it was a live show. It was available for one weekend only. You bought virtual tickets and you watched it. And then you also got like extra perk stuff for like the way that you got your digital download and certain artwork and stuff. But again, because they had put out an album and like it's just continually, and then Tool's notorious for like having special kind of artwork on their albums and then putting out a limited edition vinyl set. They keep coming up with ways of making it something to actually buy.
Yeah.
And that's rare nowadays where it's like paired with especially in the rock world. I can't speak for what they're figuring out to do with pop. I don't know. I'm not hip on it. But when in the world of rock, so much stuff just comes out and it's out all of a sudden. And
Yeah.
that's it. I don't have a reason
And
to
then
buy an album.
what do you do with it? Or you don't even know. Like I fell out of the know. You know what I mean?
Me
Like
too.
that's the big thing. Like especially like with the band I just told you about, the Gone is Gone. Basically, to me, a super group when it's Troy Sanders from Macedon and Troy Van Leeuwen. And I had no idea. Like the only reason I heard about them was because of my streaming app that I use. I don't use Spotify. I use Amazon Music, but it's was listening to Mastodon. Was listening. Then I found this other stuff that kind of started getting suggested. And then I just hear Troy's voice. I'm like, what is this? I look down. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is 10 years old. How did I not know? It's not, this isn't recent, this is
That's
older.
crazy.
It's
Yeah.
super crazy. Like,
There's so much stuff that comes out and it's like totally under the radar, and it even has like big people in it that were like almost legends of our time, and collaborations. And yeah, it's hard to keep up with all of it. And then once you do find it, even if you do find it, even if you know when it comes out, it's just hard. There's not much of a train to get on as far as purchasing something. I mean, the best bet you've got is trying to go catch a ticket. You go catch them live by buying a ticket to their show. But which is great. And that, you should try to do that. And I want to try to do that and all that. But it's just to be able to come up with ideas on things that are actually worth purchasing. When Tool put out their last album, which is almost 5 years ago now, which is crazy,
I
they
know.
did a vinyl EP release vinyl release with it, right? And I didn't buy it, but then I regretted not buying it because I didn't think about how much of it is a limited edition run.
That's the
And
key, right? It's
that is
not,
the key.
it's like how comic books used to be 50 years ago. Like they only printed so many of them and then you
Yeah.
don't get any more. And if you got them, you got them. And the ones that are in good condition are worth more. Like, but that went
Mhm.
away with this mass produce. Everything's mass. It's mass everything. There's
Mhm.
enough for everybody tenfold. And it's like, where's the collectability there?
Well, and that's what's so brilliant about approaching this market with limited edition runs of stuff, because ultimately, at the end, once the limited edition run is over, you're still left with everything you normally would have gotten from a band. The music's still there. You still have access to buy the ticket. You just didn't take advantage of this bonus stuff that they put out for like hardcore fans. And I
Yeah.
know, yeah, and I remember that same week it came out, it sold out. And then they made like another little run of them, and I was like, does that go against their limited edition or is that part of it? But I remember looking on eBay that week and albums were already selling for $300 to $500 a pop just for the vinyl LP. And I'm like, God, what is that going to be worth in 50 years? Like, and you could have bought it for, ultimately it was a package that included that for $100. Now let's think about that for a second. If they sold, 1,000 at $100, not bad, and they sold a hell of a lot more than 1,000. I think it was like a 10,000 run. So 10,000 times, $100.
So
It's pretty good,
that's $1 million.
right?
That's a
Out of
cool
the
move.
gate,
Yeah.
out of the gate,
Yeah.
just why not? Like why not? Why not do that? So obviously you have to have a fan base that's there to do that for, but it's still just it's pretty admirable. And limited edition runs, dude, that is so much of the angle for Trans Am Worldwide. When they put out a new car, there's a limited edition run of a certain model of that car. The Burt Reynolds Signature Edition series was limited to 77. That made them extremely desirable. The current Chevelle model that they have is limited to 25 of the 1,500 horsepower package options with the 454 engine. And what happens is those sell out first. I mean, and those are at a higher price point. And honestly, the owner of Trans Am was a little skeptical about making a model that cost as much as that did and had as much horsepower as that. But the engine performance director, Josh Langless, sorry, Josh, he said, we can do it. And I think that there's a market for it. And literally the first thing that happened was they sold out of all 25, and people have been calling, trying to. Now, here's what's happening. People are literally, I can't say how much money, but a lot of money, not just $1,000, like a lot of money are spending to get one of those that from somebody that already has the slot. Cause this stuff takes a year and a half to make.
Oh,
So,
wow.
they're not being, they are.
The line.
I talked to a guy that's out of Michigan who has an insane car collection, and he did buy one out from somebody else that had it because he wanted to make sure he had the 454. And again, I can't say how much money it was, but it's a lot. Like it's more than a lot of people I know make in a year. Just to get the slot to then buy the car.
Just for the position.
For the position, yeah.
Then he has to buy the car.
Then he has to buy the car,
So the guy who bought the position is like, hey, that's cool. I don't get the car, but I just made money off of nothing. Right?
Yeah, exactly. That guy can still then go get a 396 model, of which there's unlimited amounts that'll be made of that. But the 454, that's it. And so this limited edition run thing, it truly is. It's the only way, because if you think about anything that has value, scarcity is attached to it. That's what gold is. That's what any metal. So you have to figure out a way to create scarcity. And it's not any kind of trick as much as it's just cool to offer something that can be a value that's still representatory of, whatever the art is that you're doing. That's why painting is so valuable. It's literally the only one. The prints sell for what they do, but the actual painting, that's a one and only.
Yeah, it could be priceless,
Absolutely. Sorry, I had to adjust something on camera.
No, I realized too. This is the trial run in the new place. This old mic stand, it keeps. I just adjusted it, and I was watching my screen, watching as it was slowly falling down.
Yeah. So now you're in your new studio. How close is it to being where you consider it like a stopping point for building in? Is it there, or is it where do you?
So I am in. This is what I'm in is a 12 by 30. One of those pre-made metal sheds. It's a shed. It's like you buy it, they bring it in on a truck, they drop it off. It's really chintzy. It's a wood floor system with tin on the exterior and like not even real 2x4s. It's like 2.5 inch by 2, whatever. They're just studs every 2 foot. You could stand outside and drop kick a hole, no problem, right through the side of it. Just it is what it is. That was just my starting platform. And then I spent 2 weeks framing out the inside. So the first thing I did was insulate it and then put plywood on the interior and fully sheet everything solid. So the inside is a solid wooden box. Then I did the room within the room. The room behind me, this wall behind me is a partition. On the other side of that, there's a raised floor system that's sitting on rubber isolation pads. And then that's a 2x6 system fully insulated on the floor with another 2x4 wall and ceiling assembly that's all framed in, and it's all isolated with those same rubber pads all the way around. So it's basically a room encapsulated inside of this building that's completely isolated from everything with these rubber pads, and it's built, and it's also insulated, sheeted, and covered. And I've got this bluish blanket. These are like the disposable U-Haul moving blankets. Like when you go rent a U-Haul, they say, oh, you need some blankets, 10 for, $20 or
That's what I
whatever.
got too.
Yeah, and I just, man, I found a place like a thrift store down here, and they were just selling these things by the bag full, like $10 for a bag of 5. And
Wow.
I was like, give me 5 bags. I got $50 worth of these things, and I still have 2 bags left over.
Whoa.
I did all the walls everywhere, and then in this room, like I did a lot of research. The live room in there, where the guitar amps are set up. Well, the heads are in here, and then I've got snakes that run down. You can't see it down in the corner in there. I've got my snake that runs in my Pro Tools rig. So I've got 8 inputs in there, XLRs. So that's why I'm talking through my AKG vocal mic right now, because my SM7B is currently mic'd up on my guitar cab with a Sennheiser E609 and a SM57, just a 3 mic setup on the cab. They're all in phase. I checked it, Brett. Don't worry. And the live room has its little thing. I built none of the walls are parallel. The ceiling has like this arch design. There's this really cool like diffuser that looks like the bow of a ship busting into the side of it. Just something I kind of like did on the fly. And then this room is that room's like 12 by 17, well, 12 by 16. This room is a lot smaller. This is almost square, which you don't really want for a mixing room. But I did a lot of research, and I got really lucky, and I found this black material that's back here. You can see this is a piece of it. It's actually completely on the floor. It's 2-inch thick foam that is a padded floor from a dance studio where they had a rehearsal room, and this is like asylum type padded flooring where you could body slam your kid on this stuff and they'll be fine. It's super soft. I put it on the floor of this room. It's on the walls. It's on the ceiling. And on the back wall over here in the back, I've got bass traps. This is an angle. It's actually angled on that wall. I've got a sheet hanging on this one right here. But they're stuffed with insulation. They're bass traps because I did the research on the frequency range on these small rooms and how, you can deaden it and take care of the higher frequencies, which is what like that acoustic foam stuff does, like the egg crate stuff. And that's good for the high frequencies, just to stop reflections, because that's what you don't want is too much reflections. Like this window right here is a big reflection point, but my studio monitors here, you can see it, and it's ear level with me, and the window's higher. So when I sit at my mix table right here, I don't get a lot of reflection from that. And that's what that extra pad is right there. Like if I need to, I can just cover the window up and do it. But if I'm tracking people, it doesn't really matter as much when you're just doing a live track. When you're tracking it, it doesn't have to be perfect. So I have the window. I can see them, talk to them in there. But this small room with the bass traps, the bass frequencies are what really build up in little small areas. And that's what the bass traps do. They just capture those long waves and don't let them escape. And it doesn't kind of get full of bass in the room. And then I'm overcompensating, cutting bass out of the mix, and then the mix is too thin because it sounds huge in a small room, but then you put it in your earbuds or in the car and you're like, oh man, I don't have any bass. But
Absolutely.
I love it, man. This is the coolest place. Amber loves it. We were talking the other day on one of the other podcasts, it's like, now I've got the space in the house back. We can turn it into a dining room. It can be a workout room, family room, breakfast area. It's like now the house is the house. This is not the house. This is its own dedicated space. It's not done. I've got, there's only one door on the live room right now. And so when I track my guitar, when I shut that door, it's very quiet. My guitar, my 412 cabinet is cranking in there. I've got the Splon turned up to like 5, it's not all the way, but I mean, it's 100 watt amp cranking. And when I close that door, I hear a little bit of the lower tone, like a little bit,
Wow.
but I hear the mics in these monitors well enough that I can understand what it sounds like. It's not interfering too bad. Once I add the second door right there, that'll all be gone. It'll literally be nothing. And
Wow,
it's
man.
yeah,
Have you walked outside with your wireless unit while playing to see what the
I
exterior's like?
I did. So it's like when I go outside and I jam, like again, the low frequencies are the hardest ones. It's not perfect. I didn't spend really anything. This is a bunch of stuff. I got some free lumber from a good friend of mine. Um, and when I go outside and do it, it's like this, it's you hear instead of but
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
like this little and I told Amber like this little boom box right here, this little guy, he gets pretty loud. It's like a little JBL Charge 5 is what it is.
Uh-huh.
um I had that thing in the live room, full blast,
Yeah.
as loud as that thing can go. And I closed this door and I went outside and I closed this other door that leaves this room. So then there's the exit door there that
Yeah.
goes outside. And I brought Amber out here and I said, okay, come check out the studio. So we walk up to the shed, you hear nothing.
That's awesome.
You open this door up, come in, then you hear a little bit in here, right? Just a little bit. Then when you open that door, it's blaring, it's a party.
Wow.
And she's like, oh my goodness. I said, yeah, I did pretty good.
That's awesome, man. That's fantastic. Because people don't realize if they've never had tried it, how hard it is to deafen out, like actually soundproof a room,
Yeah.
right? It's
It's
challenging.
it's near impossible because of the bass frequencies, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You can and those are the ones that are the hardest to escape because they're the longest sound wave.
Mm,
They're literally there's I'm not going to go in because I don't know all the math to it, but it's like it takes a lot and really to do it 100%, and it costs a lot of money. I mean,
yeah.
anything that says sound on it, there's an upcharge. It's an extra $100 just because the insulation says sound attenuation or something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Or
I
the
remember.
foam or any of it.
Oh, yeah, no, totally. I mean, and I'm like, I give up immediately when I look at the pricing of the legit stuff. I'm like, all right, I have to go the do it yourself route. And that being said, it's not like I've tried to do this for many years, but I remember a long time ago when we tried to do it at a garage that we were renting out from my aunt. We were renting out the whole house, and there was a garage there, and we built an extra wall inside so that way we could have spacing. But when me and my buddy, who was a drummer, went into Home Depot. This was before like the internet was as much of an accessible resource as it is now. Before there were all the forums, where you can just
Yeah.
exchange information and you see people going back and forth. That wasn't really there. So I go into Home Depot. We went into Home Depot and we're asking, like we don't know shit when it comes like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and everybody's got like some magic formula to make. Well,
Oh,
what you got to do is you got to put tinfoil up because that'll reflect all the sound waves back, right? That's exactly what we did at a studio in California. It was
those are
tinfoil up on every wall. Dude, we did it. We were like,
those are RF waves he's talking about. That's not sound waves.
dude, we totally did it. And then there was another guy that said flat black paint. You got to paint everything in flat black. That'll kill the sound immediately.
The darker colors absorb
Dude,
much more
we were
sound.
like, what we're going to do? We're going to do both techniques.
We're doing
We painted
flat
it flat
tinfoil.
black. And then we put tinfoil all over the wall. Some teenagers trying to soundproof a garage. It didn't work worth a shit.
Oh man, that's great. That is great.
Yeah.
You guys are like, yeah, it's gonna be so good. And you get in there like, man, I don't know.
I think it's working.
I think it's pretty good. What do you think? I think it fucking sucks.
Yeah, again, the cop still came out.
Showed up.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many but back then you couldn't cross check that shit. It's like somebody told you and they're saying that they helped build a studio in California and you're 17, 18 years old and you're like stars in your eyes, like, well, oh man, this is the secret trick. Same thing happens in the world of martial arts. Like back then, and especially before our time, like people were badasses and had all these magic formulas. Then, UFC gets to be where it's at, and you see how much is just bullshit,
Oh
It
yeah.
just doesn't
Yeah,
work.
Rex Kwon Do, self defense.
Yeah, totally.
Honestly, I love the. And I don't want to talk bad on martial arts, but I love the Aikido videos with the Aikido guy and the mixed
Yeah.
martial arts guy, and it takes a couple leg kicks, and then the guy's like, time out, I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't know you are. It's like, poor guy. There's no
Yeah.
there's no I in Aikido today.
Aikido was a tough one, man. Steven Seagal used to be like an idol. I mean, I used to idolize. That was one of my guys. Steven Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone. I mean, those were, and then later Jackie Chan stole me away from everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, I still love Arnold, but as far as just like an amazing specimen, it was Jackie Chan and Jet Li really stole the show for me, and I got way into them. But
They all those guys you named are badass. Chuck
yeah,
Norris was badass in like another way,
yeah, yeah.
And then a guy that I really liked was Mark Dacascos.
What movie was he in?
So Mark Dacascos was in a movie
Did
called
he?
Only the Strong. Was
Oh,
the first one
the
I saw.
Capoeira movie.
Capoeira movie, yeah.
I saw the fuck out of that. I watched
Yeah,
that so many times.
with the high school kids, like the reject.
Yeah, I
punk ass
love that movie. He was also in Double Dragon.
Double Dragon, yep, and he was in one called Drive or Overdrive. That one,
Yeah,
the one martial arts, and that was over the top. He had like a system in his chest, like a heart. It would like inject adrenaline into him. And he
yeah,
was overdrive. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Then
yeah.
he's like fuck, super crazy Bruce Lee.
He did
That
some
was
cool
like,
stuff, man.
yeah, it's super cool. And then I didn't see him in action movies anymore. And then he's like the cliche guy on the Iron Chef show.
Really?
That's where he ended up. He's like the Iron Cook guy. Like that was Martin Costa.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I'm like this. You have this amazing martial arts actor, and he's like stuck on the cooking show, being like an Asian guy on the cooking show. That's stupid.
I wonder what happened to him. I
I
wonder
don't
if he had like some issues and fell off the wagon, or if he had a physical limitation that came up.
I didn't follow his story. Again, this is before internet. This is a long
Yeah,
time. Only the Strong
yeah.
was, I think, late 90s, early 2000s. Had to be.
That movie's the reason I tried capoeira. It's the only reason I knew what it was. I mean, that was when I was
Yeah.
introduced to capoeira. And then the school I was doing kung fu at, they also had an instructor that was doing capoeira. And I did it for like 3-4 months and never got very good at it. Obviously, that's not enough time to get good at it. But I was so limited because, for one thing, my wrists are not, they're so thin. My dad has little wrists too, even though he's a huge bodybuilder. And doing all that
So
hand stuff, it was fucking me up. Like all the handstand, and like I
yeah,
couldn't do handstand,
they would
but it
do
was
kicks,
affecting my guitar.
the roundhouse kick. Like I bet like the roundhouse kick capoeira is like you do almost like a standing handspring. Like your hand goes
Yeah,
down to the ground, but your leg goes up and kicks him in the face as
yes,
you
yep.
spin a full 360. Like it came out at that right time, right? When I was like 11, 12, 13. And I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm capoeira and all kinds of stuff on the trampoline in the neighborhood.
yeah,
I'm trying to do that crazy spinning horizontal barrel thing. He did at the end,
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
it's the super move. Like
But on
kung
a
fu movies,
trampoline.
kung fu movies had a super move, right? The end,
Yeah,
the one move that took the bad guy out at the end, and that was the one, that crazy jumping horizontal. He's like, he's
yeah,
spinning like a barrel, and then somehow his foot just comes out like whop, and just
right.
annihilates him. Like
Yeah,
we need to bring back the super move, the because all the video games, the guys have the super moves, right?
no,
Like
totally.
Street Fighter's got the dragon punches and the
Uh-huh.
fireballs and Sonic Boom and all
Well, I
that.
like the way Quentin Tarantino paid homage to it with Kill Bill and the five-finger death punch.
Yeah,
Super
yeah,
subtle, but it was all about this one move that would stop your heart after you took 5 steps. You
yeah.
know, like You're fucking awesome, Quentin. I love you. That's so good.
Now you're gonna die in 5 steps.
Yeah. So good. But hey, I wanted to cover a few topics here. So there is something crazy. Now, granted, this is camera stuff, but it does potentially affect me. I mean, I don't even know where it's going to land with all this. So, because you've helped film and, I've explained the RED camera system to you, right? Like RED cameras.
Yeah, yeah.
So you basically, and just for the audience, RED cameras are used to film major production films. That's what Guardians of the Galaxy was filmed on, for instance. Many, many films have been filmed on RED.
The Lord of the Rings trilogy.
The Lord of the Rings, exactly. Yeah. You're dead on. The Hobbit was actually, it might have been, come to think of it, it's The Hobbit. I don't know if RED was used for Lord of the Rings at the time, because I don't know if they were there at the time. Definitely the Hobbit series.
Seems like same quality to me. It's Peter Jackson.
It's like that good.
That look, that big, that epic look. Yeah.
It's fantastic. RED is the reason digital cameras are competing with film nowadays. They really were on the frontier of it. And they've been around that whole time. So they've been around quite a while. And there's basically RED and there's ARRI, which is like, they used to make old film cameras too. ARRI is kind of considered, for the most part, the creme de la creme of digital also, because they're the oldest dating back for film. And there's Sony. Sony's really absolutely in there for big budget films. In fact, Avatar was filmed with Sony cameras. James Cameron likes to use Sony for digital. But anyway, so RED, as of a couple weeks ago, I found this out late because I was vacationing, they were bought. They were bought by Nikon. Nikon has bought RED. Yeah.
So now I'm on the outside. So what does that mean?
Yeah.
So to me, as someone who's not in that world like you are.
Yeah.
So I hear, but the little bit I am in the world, I know what RED is. Mm-hmm. And like my perspective of Nikon, I feel like, Datsun just bought Toyota. but not really, right? Like Nikon, overall, Nikon's probably a much bigger company. They're just broader, and that means they have more money, because RED is a smaller, my hands on the screen, smaller specialized company who does one or two things extremely well. Right?
You're very much on target. Nikon is predominantly known for its photography. They've been around forever. It's Nikon or Canon. I mean, those until recently were the two camera manufacturers that were the most renowned. If anyone gets mad at me for saying that, it's just the truth. Nikon and Canon were the biggest for a while in the photography market. Other competitors have stepped up. Sony's right in there now, and there's other ones too. But sure. So Nikon, but for video, Nikon's really been lagging compared to the other camera manufacturers. Everybody, all the big ones, Canon and Sony, have really stepped up to the plate in offering amazing video performance in their cameras, and Nikon's been kind of lagging. Now, what happened was last year, RED tried to sue Nikon. So a year ago, RED tried to sue Nikon because RED had the patent for compressed RAW inside of a camera. And this is why a lot of cameras do not offer RAW filming like you get in the RED, is because RED has the copyright to it. But RED had apparently somehow made a deal with Canon. I'm not going to get too in the weeds on this. I'm going to summarize how it affects me in just 1 second. But basically, long story short, Nikon, I believe, won the case, is my understanding. And at this point, here we are a year later, and Nikon bought RED. Nikon is a company of roughly 20,000 employees. RED is a company of roughly 220 employees, somewhere in there. So completely different level. Now, the big question marks for me are, one, as a guy that owns RED and has built into the RED ecosystem, RED has heavily supported Canon, and even on their newest models has a Canon mount. Like the native lens mount for the camera is a Canon mount, like I have on my Canon cameras.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen to that now that Nikon owns it in the future generations. So when one of the big things when you pick out a camera brand to go with is you kind of start building up lenses. And while there's a lot of adapters to use different companies' lenses on different cameras, at the end of the day, oftentimes the performance is usually either diminished or hampered in some way. Maybe the autofocus isn't as fast. Maybe
Yeah.
image stabilization doesn't work with that lens mount. And you're also putting on something that extends the size of the camera, which can be a nuisance for if, especially if you're using a long lens, it's now that much longer. It's harder to balance on a gimbal. So there's like, it's not perfect to have to use adapters. And
Yeah.
I built heavily in the Canon ecosystem. And so my cameras really primarily 90% of it has been Canon and Red for the last few years. So for me, I'm like, oh man, what's going to happen with all the lenses I built up and the compatibility and all that kind of stuff. But on the bright side, um, I mean, I guess there'll probably be more products coming out more frequently with that much of a backing of employee base,
Yeah, it's those kind of things are scary, right? Because
Hmm.
if Red is a 250 employee company and
Hmm.
they operate like that and they have the quality standard that they have. Now they're bought out by a much larger company. I mean, track record kind of shows that okay, then you know what Nikon should do is let Red continue to operate as its own way. But larger companies come in, start integrating larger company policies into smaller companies. Then there's when the people who are at that company get fed up with that,
Yeah.
they don't it's not the same anymore. And then
Right.
then the magic. Sometimes the magic's gone. Sometimes it changes, sometimes it's better, maybe. It's
Yeah.
just it's definitely a question mark. It's kind of like a moment of uncertainty right now, right?
Yeah, and it makes it confusing to continue to build in that ecosystem. Like I had my eyes on more Canon RF mounted lenses, which cost a lot of money. I mean, on the cheaper side, they're around $1,000, and on the more expensive side, they're a few $1,000s for a lens. So when you
Yeah.
buy them, you want compatibility to happen. And I thought I was building towards a Red ecosystem that I'll, every roughly, in this, what I've realized is basically every 4 to 5 years, somewhere in that ballpark, you got to make some upgrades. You got to get some, owning a business, owning a video company, like you got
Yeah.
to invest in what the technology is at that point, buy the latest, greatest, then you're good for another 4 or 5 years. Same with computers.
Yep.
And so I guess I've got a little bit of time here. I mean, I'm not trying to buy another camera system for at least another year, unless the only exception to that is if I book every or enough of the car videos that I have bids on right now. If enough of those book, then I will invest in this other camera system. That's the DJI uh, 4D, and it's a camera that literally is the gimbal. You know how you see me using a gimbal, like a
Yeah. Yeah.
motorized gimbal?
DJI is like the drone company. They do
That's right.
gimbals. Yeah.
They put out a model of camera a couple of years ago that was very interesting, where the gimbals and the camera are all one thing. So they have their own camera with their highest end sensor, and the footage looks great. And they released an 8K model recently. But on top of everything, like the limitation with the gimbal systems and what you've seen me use and we've used on our productions is it
Yeah.
has your Z and Y axis, but what it doesn't, or I'm sorry, it has your X and Y axis, and it does not have a Z axis, which is your vertical.
Yeah.
And but this camera does. So the lens is mounted into the camera. You put the lens, whatever lens you want on it, and the stabilizer, the arm is built in the camera all as one unit, and it goes up and down. So it's left, right axis, and up and down. And so
Wow.
you mount that onto the back of a car, and you got the smoothest, buttery, car to car driving footage that you can get. But also, you're always on a gimbal whenever you want to be. You just turn that mode on, and you're on a gimbal like that.
Yeah.
And so I would only go that route if it was the just for the car stuff, and then you get a wireless monitor that can control everything about the camera, which I'm doing right now on
Like
my
it's
phone.
their drone technology.
Oh
It's
yeah, yeah,
It's
to the
it's
max.
it's DJI's drone technology. They're like, okay, we've got these drones, and all the drones have cameras, right? They're like,
Yeah.
okay, well, let's put this, let's break into the video market more. You know,
Yes.
drones are like a hybrid, right? You have a hobbyist market and also film market. And
Hmm.
they, the same, I feel like they've been using the same ones for both, the same drones. Like there's some drone footage that we have in Cue the Muses, that I think we use Brandon's drone, right? And a couple
Yeah. And because that was a few years ago, I mean, the technology is just
yeah.
amazing now for what you get. I mean, the drone that I have now, which is a couple of years old, just because that was 2 years later than when we filmed the other stuff, is that much better, And DJI has completely dominated that end of the market. They also have handheld gimbal cameras that you can buy for a few $100s that are
Yep.
great.
I've
They've,
seen
yeah, they've got so much stuff. But here's one last thing, and we can switch gears from talking about film stuff. But it is interesting because have you heard about like the possible TikTok ban?
no, I don't
This
think
is a
so.
real thing. It's going to the court systems like this. Like it's being voted on between Congress and the Supreme Court. It's a real possibility that TikTok will be banned in the United States because
Is
it's
it,
a
well, why? Well,
because
yeah.
it's a Chinese owned company, and the pitch is that it's just too much information, it's too invasive, it's mics in every phone, they can listen at any time, and it's a national risk of security. That's the push. I'm not saying that's not the case. It's a balancing act because if they were to enact that, then where does it what does it mean for other companies as well? At what point do companies cross the line? Because everything that I just mentioned is a reality for Facebook as
It's,
well, but it's just not a Chinese company. But
you know, yeah, I deal with this a little bit in my professional job and a couple of things, because there's this there's a system called the FAR Act, okay, and the FAR Act is a basically it's an act where on a project that is like a U.S. government project, U.S. defense contractor project, you have to provide nothing but United States originated material. Okay.
okay,
And it cannot and there's approved countries. So like I don't know all of by heart, but it's like United States, UK, Australia, all the good guys, you know what I mean? And so what that really gets down to is like, okay, well, I've got light fixtures I need to get in here. Who in the hell in America is making light fixtures? Not only that, I've got some techie stuff. Who in the world is getting all their techie stuff and all the parts and pieces of the techie stuff from America? And Taiwan is where all of the chips come from, like almost the entirety of the chips. There are places in the United States that are building, that are building these a couple of new facilities. And what I'm
yeah,
circling back to the TikTok thing, it's like, dude, you can say ban TikTok because it's got this and that, but every phone itself has come from China. Everything.
right, right,
Okay, I mean, if they could put it could be whatever the hell they want in there. Sure, it goes through an inspection program, but I mean, they could put a different chip in there. They could put, it gets so weird when you start talking stuff like that. And like you hear things like that, and like the conspiracist folks like, oh man, no, we can't have it. And they're watching a fucking television that's from China, you know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they're tweeting their conspiracist nonsense on a device that came from China.
Well, you're right. You're making a great point. And it's like all the companies that we're using, all the apps that we use, all of that has access to the same ability that we're talking about TikTok having, I think. And the reason I brought it up, and the reason it was still related to the film thing, because that was quite a
Yeah.
tangent, a curveball I threw at you, is that DJI is a Chinese company. And DJI has been under the radar now for possibly, they're talking about, I mean, I don't know how far this part's gotten. And this is what I'm talking about when precedents are set by something like a TikTok ban because of the security thing. DJI might be grounded in the United States because again, security risk, right? You got the drones and the cameras gathering all that data, wireless communication, and DJI has been under the gun a little bit too, so under their sights. So that's weird. I mean, you want to talk about what, I mean, does that even make sense? What do they do for all the people that invested in DJI technology? And I'll give you an example of how bad it can be. There was a phone that tried to come out a few years ago, was gaining a lot of traction here. It's a bigger seller than iPhone and Samsung combined, as my understanding at the time at least, across all of Asia. And it was Huawei. That was the company, Huawei. And
Wow.
they started to put and they had better cameras in those phones than iPhone. They were like, there were video makers that were getting paid to make videos, like guys that I watch on YouTube, and they started doing exactly what all the camera companies do now, which is like they give out all these units to all the YouTubers to use and review. And that
Yeah.
way they get crazy cheap advertising that's to a direct market. And they started doing it with the Huawei phones, and the camera technology looked phenomenal. Now, at this point, we've passed that, but I'm talking about a few years ago.
Yeah.
And they canned it, man. You can't, like, what they ended up doing was Huawei couldn't have Google, I believe is how they did it, could not have Google on the operating system. So that just tanked all sales here in the US, and it just didn't go anywhere. So, the government can make decisions where, and nobody that bought those Huawei phones got some kind of reimbursement from the government, because they decided that you can't have it anymore. So
Yeah.
how crazy would it be to invest in some of these camera systems, that cost a lot of money, and then some law comes out where you're not allowed to fly it, it's kind of, it's a weird tightrope, and it's a gray line. Once you make a policy like that for that, it can bleed to other stuff, because if it's going by the same rules and reasoning, it's about security.
Yeah.
You can pull that security card on pretty much anything you want to when you decide to do it. And that's where a lot of people think, is that the ban is actually a way of controlling information. TikTok is widely used predominantly by the younger generation. There's been a lot of controversy about the Israel-Palestine war, things like that, which I don't want to get into here. But the bottom line is a lot of resistance to the way that a lot of the current, administration is viewing the situation between these wars and stuff. And they've had to, same way that they kind of closed down on some of the conversation that was even happening around COVID in regards to, was it from a lab, or is it risky to take a vaccine? I'm not throwing my hat in the arena. The bottom line is it is out now. It's official. Even the White House was sued that, they were the documents are out. You can see that they were requesting that people's accounts were frozen or taken off or banned, and posts were put away.
Yeah.
So it is the government
Yeah.
making, involving themselves in weird things like that. So we don't know. It's a weird area we're going in, and it makes it dicey to know what to invest in,
I was
financially with equipment.
Yeah, I recently realized that I don't want to go down a road that steers too far political, because that's not what we're about. But
That's not what we
really,
try to do. Yeah.
I realized the other day that I like this guy Russell Brand quite a bit.
Oh, I like
And
Russell. Yeah.
like
He's fun.
this morning I was just listening on the way to work, random video, because he does jujitsu too, and I
Yeah.
I caught the Rogan episode where he's talking about his jujitsu journey.
Rogan got him interested in jujitsu.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, it's all 100% accurate, right? It's like, okay,
Uh-huh.
yeah, everything they say about it is true. It's there, and so I just started liking Russell Brand, and he was talking about. I heard a segment today, and he's talking exactly what you're talking about. How, well, 3 years ago, they were saying the news stations and everybody was saying that you have to do this, and if you don't, you're an asshole. But then
Mm-hmm.
now it's like, oh well, maybe it wasn't, fully tested, maybe this and that, and just talk,
Mm-hmm.
just facts, right? Like it's like,
Yeah.
you should do what's best for your own body, and whatever your individual situation is, and that's absolutely not what anyone was saying back in 2020. Yeah,
Yeah. It was
2020.
a risky position to have, and I took the vaccine. I just didn't get boosters. That's where I ended up landing with that,
Same. And I
Yeah.
took it because my mother asked me to get it. She was scared.
Yeah.
It made her feel better, and I'll do whatever makes my mom feel better. That's fine.
Yeah.
I got the J&J one. It was one shot. I was like, cool. They asked me which one I wanted in line, and I asked the lady in front of me, I said, or behind me, I said, which one are you getting? She said, I'm going to get the J&J. And I turned around and I said, that's the one I'm getting then. Like, just literally didn't care, give me a shot. But I'm probably not the smartest. Don't take my medical advice, people. Like, do your research.
I don't think anyone is. Okay. No, I don't want to get into the vaccine debate at all. But it is again connecting the dots here on what's related to Q the Muses. I mean, I brought up cameras. That's related. We make a show where I'm into cameras. I do this for a living and all that. But another connection point is, so imagine that you, as a U.S. citizen, this goes back to our Facebook thing with the Facebook outage on our last episode. It's like, if you have all your eggs in one basket and your entire presence is on one platform, imagine if your entire presence in the U.S. is on TikTok and it gets banned.
Then you got to go get a real job.
Whereas before, you might have been making, you got to transfer everybody over to some new platform. You might have been making $1 million a year. I mean, not directly from TikTok, but because of TikTok, people hire you to do the photos or something. I mean, I've heard about photographers on Instagram even, and they just have a popular Instagram. When they go do a shoot, out of the gate, we're talking about 50 grand for them to come out on set to take photos, right? And that's only because of their Instagram presence.
Because they have so many, because they have such, again, it comes free advertising. Well, not free, but it is direct advertising. Like the people with all the followers, somebody who has like a niche audience, like we would want to get a hold of. It's there, like Rick, like Beato, I did all this research doing the studio, right? And like the one thing in my studio that I feel like I'm lacking a couple of things. Like, I'm rocking an AKG 220, right? And I got an SM7B, and then I have like 10 57s, and I got a bunch of microphones, but I don't have any microphones that are like expensive microphones.
Right.
I do everything I can with what I got. SM7B, love it or hate it, they're awesome because they have so much flexibility. What I'm getting at is, I watch these videos of these guys testing these mics. It's like, well, I've got a studio like Beato, or there's a couple other guys, and like, well, Sweetwater sent me over the Neumann, U87 to test against the Olympic whatever, like a 30, the Neumann 87 U87. That's like industry standard. You walk into a recording studio, you see a Neumann U87. Okay, this is a real studio, right? That's like that mic. It's like $3,500 microphone,
right?
Like, and it's not even the best, but it's because it's the name. It's like, it's the Gibson Les Paul. It's the Marshall JCM 800.
It's the Red Epic Dragon.
It's the Red Epic Dragon. Yeah, like that's the one. I'm not gonna buy a Neumann. Amber's like, you should get one. I know I'm not gonna get one, but people, they send them to these people for free because when I go to YouTube and I want to look for microphones, this is the guy that I like. These are the people that I look at, and like, it's not just me. It's hundreds of thousands of people, right? And then that's marketing. That's the way marketing is today. And it's very much more effective than it was 20 years ago, before the internet, before YouTube, when it was a commercial or just hearsay. Because you weren't seeing commercials on television on HBO. HBO didn't have commercials on USA or TBS. You remember those stations? Like, you weren't seeing Neumann, studio recording microphones. This was a club that you didn't get in, right? Unless you it was hard. But now it's all on YouTube. Now everybody's connected like that. That's one of the beautiful things about the internet these days.
It's amazing. I mean, for everybody, that's a benefit. You can find more information on the specific things that you're interested in. It's not, and as an advertiser, if you have a product or, hopefully a show that we can get to the right people. But I mean, you have the ability, if we had marketing dollars, which we don't, but if we had marketing dollars and we wanted to, hone in on the demographic that's watching rock on YouTube for these specific bands and all that. And we could spend the capital and it would be as direct to those type of people as possible. You have things like the opportunity to be on other people's podcasts. Maybe this is one of the benefits of us having this podcast, showing our ability to communicate on a podcast. So maybe we're candidates on somebody else's podcast that's doing better. Where more people know about it. There's so many opportunities with it versus a shotgun approach of paying a lot of money for limited time on a TV station to air a commercial to a region. That's really, there's no specific demographic with that. You're just thinking regionally where you're trying to make sales. And that's just a completely different world. So companies used to spend so much more on advertising for a single ad that was a shotgun approach like that versus now it reminds me of the bands that are willing to play and kill themselves on a stage for free or peanuts or pay to play, and they're just excited for the run and the opportunity to get to perform, and they think it's great, but they don't realize how much money they're making for a venue on a particular night, and they could have made enough money that they could sustain doing this for much longer. These YouTubers at first have been that way. Now things have caught up, and now these YouTubers are making fantastic money and getting paid extremely well. But that extremely well is literally peanuts compared to what the companies were spending just a few years ago for advertising. I mean, it's not even the one single budget can afford all the YouTubers that they would have spent on one commercial, and they've still got money in the bank to run whatever other thing they want to do. But it's just so much money that it's amazing for people like us. And
to think about. Yeah, when you see how much dollars gets put into all the things, right? Like all the things, the actual numbers, like they're ridiculous when you think about it.
It's kind of unfathomable, and it makes it still challenging for guys like us where we still don't have the capital to put into running those ads, even though it's technically accessible. We could do it, but it is still volume based to get the amount of ads running on the streaming platforms that are to the right demographic. It takes money to figure out how to dial it in so you are hitting the demographic that is right for you. And the weirder your thing is, the harder it may be to find that demographic too. So there's still many hurdles, but we'll see what doors open. We've got some hopeful plans for some, interesting ways of approaching this, and some stuff that I still haven't gotten to discuss with you. And we'll see where Cue the Muses lands in this whole big equation.
Yeah, well, and if they ban TikTok, then I don't think it's going to be the end of the world, but what do I know? I'm not on.
I don't even use TikTok, so
I don't have a TikTok. I know some people have TikToks, and I constantly get bombarded with TikTok videos via text message thread or, a lot of Facebook Messenger thread, like TikTok videos, and they're just it's like anything else. Facebook algorithm has it. I caught myself, and I don't like it. I caught myself scrolling Facebook and then go into the little short video thing, and they're tailored to whatever I'm like into, like it's fitness or their jujitsu videos or
totally
studio videos. And I'll see there's always like a little cluster of 6. You'll scroll a little bit, and then there's one, they play a little piece of it, and then you're like catches you, and then you're like, oh, what happens next? And you hit the button, and then you hit the button, and then 20 minutes goes by, and I was supposed to be downstairs getting ready to do something else. Man. It's like, oh, I hate it, but it is, it's entertainment, but there's self-control that has to go there. And like, every everything you do on the internet, every website, allow cookies and all the tracking and getting all the information. And then the companies that are, backdoor selling, you hear about that. They're selling your information. And, Facebook sells information, like sells everybody's information, and where it's a social media platform. I'm not doing conspiracy, so this is just what it is.
No, that is the algorithm. That's
Yeah.
why it can suck you in the way that it does. It's all tailored for you. Even, it's using that information. Ads can even, representation of different things that are of interest to you that you might want to buy can subtly be in that video clip, that reel that you watch. And the reel was really invented by TikTok. I mean, everybody else having it is just, the shorts, the Instagram reels, and the Facebook reels. That's all an emulation of TikTok stealing the thunder in such a major way from all the other social platforms that it just dominated. And so now they've got it. And then if TikTok goes, then it spills out. It's, all this is, and we're coming to we passed an hour doing.
We did.
There is one ironic thing to this entire thing. Literally, as the screen I have up right now is finishing my 24th video of 50 that I'm making for an FSU grant. It's funded by a grant, and it's a study on the effectiveness of language learning for babies via TikTok videos. So I'm literally exporting the 24th TikTok video of this instructor right now, and I got to turn this in tomorrow, and then I'm switching gears back over to Trans Am for a while. Then I got to do 25 more videos next month, and then that'll wrap up that contract. So it's 50 TikTok videos, and I'm like, oh man, is TikTok going to be banned? Because we might need to rebrand these for YouTube Shorts or something else. But it's just weird, man. Yeah, it's a wild storm of events that's constantly happening out there in the ever-changing landscape of digital online media and social platforms.
Yeah. And then, it's all hinging on awful things too that are happening, on the other side of the planet. And that's kind of where, that's if everybody could just get along, then there wouldn't be any issue with this company being based in this country or this or that, anything like that. But the fact that there is kind of what drives this. There's a lot of, I'm not going into any of that on this podcast, but there's a lot of things happening in the world, and in some places it's literally, Rogan said it to the guy on his guest the other day. He said, if you live in that place, it is Armageddon for you. Like it is
right.
It's in some places of the world right now, it is the end of the world, and that's terrible.
Absolutely. The Israel Gaza thing and the Ukraine, Russia war. I mean, there's two major wars happening right now. We're involved in them in different ways right now. We're not directly boots on the ground, but financially and, decision wise, we're a big part of the equation. And so it's a weird, dicey time right now. And it's hard to not get a little bit wrapped up into it. But what we try to do is inspire creativity to the world. And I think through inspiration and creativity, these are the kinds of things that bring people together. I mean, that's the amazing thing about an insanely awesome rock concert of 10,000 people all coming together. And we don't know each other, but we all love this. And this thing is moving us. And then it becomes this almost like spiritual experience of energy of all of us together. And that just does bring people together. I mean, there's no ethnicity or race or color associated with any of that connection that happens at a concert like that. Like everybody just thinks this is amazing, and we all think this is amazing, and we're all feeding off of that energy of how amazing this moment in time is. We're all right here, right now.
Everybody's
beautiful.
Such an awesome time.
And that's cue the Muses.
Cue the Muses. Or, and metal shows, rock shows, any live music. That's the key. And then, theater and other forms of the arts too. It's just human creativity is what we should all have in common.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying the podcast, that's awesome. We really appreciate it. But you should check out our full actual web series if you have not seen it yet, because this is where we put all the effort into a production. It's a sci-fi comedy, but we're a rock band, and so we put music videos inside of each episode.
No views but your own easy escape. Don't pay no mind to what they say. They're in their own world.
each episode features a new singer on each song that we unveil within the episode.
And will they
All unique singers from the Southeast region, most of them from right here in the Florida Panhandle, and all independent, unsigned, unknown artists until now.
no matter how hard I try to turn it down?
Premise of the show, Ash and I are a couple of bonehead guitar players living off the grid, trying to save humanity, which has been brainwashed from an artificial intelligence stripping us away of our creativity and our creative spirit.
We developed a mind travel machine to go into people's brains and collaborate with their inner muses, bringing back music that is completely organic from human muse collaborations. Enter Cue the Muses. You know what, we're kind of getting sidetracked, man. There's only so much time for frequency absorption. We need to hop on it. Can you fire up the cadence tubes?
Yeah.
And I'll go ahead and get my shoes tied.
Okay. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and click the little bell. Tell YouTube that we matter, that you like us, and that you want to see more of us, because that's the only way that happens. Stay tuned.
Goodbye, ladies and gentlemen.
Goodbye. I'm clicking
Thanks
it.
for joining us.